Welcome to unit number 3, Mexico. We'll start our study on Mexico talking about its geography. Going to start a little bit different this time. We're going to start with some vocab words that you're going to see through the presentation, but I thought I'd give you a chance now to hear them, listen to the definition, and if you think it's important, which I think it is, to jot down the definitions at this time. So we have the following words: sinkhole, altitude, hydroelectric power, and irrigate. All of those words are going to have a very important meaning to this chapter. Take a chance now to record them if you need to, and you can pause me and come right back. Moving on, let's talk about some of the basics of geography in Mexico. It's the 14th largest country, and I know most of us know what Mexico is. I'm going to show you in a minute on the map, but here it is. It's located in North America. It is bordered obviously by the United States, also bordered by Guatemala and Belize. It is the third largest Latin American country behind Brazil and Argentina. Most of the land you can see right here, and we'll look more into it, is made up of mountains and plateaus. You can see the mountains here. And it has a very diverse landscape. There's areas in Mexico with snow-covered mountains, and then there's deep rainforests. So it's got a little bit of everything, and we'll be going through that. The geographic regions is what we're going to show you on the map, and that is kind of how geographers break down Mexico into different regions that share similar qualities of geography. And if you look at Mexico, it's really broken down into two major sections. The Gulf of California, which I'll show you on the map in a minute, splits Mexico into two. The thin peninsula to the left of the Gulf of Mexico is Baja California. However, most of Mexico is covered by the Mexican Plateau, and this includes Mexico City, which is the capital of Mexico. Surrounding the plateau are two large mountain chains, which we'll show you in a minute. They're the Sierra Madre Occidental and the Sierra Madre Oriental. The coastline and the Yucatan Peninsula round out the major geographic regions of Mexico. So here's a look at the map of Mexico with Google Earth, and just wanted to show you a couple of things. We're talking about how Mexico is kind of split into two major landforms. You can see here's the Gulf of California, and here's your Baja California over here. Okay. Some of the other things that I wanted to show you, we talked about the Yucatan Peninsula. Remember, a peninsula is with area of land with water on three sides. Your central plateau is right here, and this is where a lot of people live. Okay, and then you have your mountain ranges, and you can see, you don't even need to zoom in to see your mountain ranges on both sides here. If we zoom out, we can see that Mexico obviously is bordered by the United States, and then we can see Central American countries of Guatemala and Belize right here border Mexico here. Actually, way back in history, Mexico extended a little bit farther, and when we start talking about some of the ancient tribes of Mexico, some of those tribes actually go into parts of Guatemala and Belize. We're going to talk about the climate, but another thing you can notice by looking at the map quickly is look how dry the land looks. The northern Mexico, and you can tell this from Google Earth. And as you get more south, you can see it's darker greens, meaning there's more vegetation. Down in this area, there's a ton of vegetation. So let's talk about the general climate of Mexico. There's several different climate areas. Obviously, we can see we've just looked at how big of a country it is. And also another thing that can vary the temperature and climate is the altitude. And many different altitudes in Mexico obviously have a big impact. But in general, northern Mexico is very dry, warm, and there's actually two major deserts that are part of northern Mexico. So the picture right here is northern Mexico in general. Southern Mexico has much more rain and vegetation, and if you keep going south, this is what you're going to see. The further south you go, the more rainforests there are. One of the big problems in the climate is hurricanes, and they're a problem on the coastal areas, and they typically hit in the late summer and early fall. Land resources. Mexico has many different land resources that are important to its geography. It is the biggest producer in the world of silver, produces more silver than any other country in the world. And it's also one of the top producers of oil. You can see an oil rig here. Oil is drilled under the Gulf of Mexico and along the Gulf Coast. There's also tons of untapped oil, which means oil that has not yet been drilled. And that's one of the concerns that people in Mexico have, that they have more that they could get to. One of the problems that Mexico faces is only about 1/5 of the land, and looking back at the map before, you could tell because of the dry area of Mexico, only about 1/5 of the land can be used for farming. Fishing is a large industry, especially on the coast, and 1/6 of the entire electricity in Mexico is produced from hydroelectric power. And obviously, we talked about hydroelectric power earlier. It's using water to create energy. There's many environmental impacts going on currently in Mexico that have a lot to do with their geography. The population in Mexico is still growing at a good rate. Actually, it's growing faster than the United States. And that's leading to some geographic problems. Overcrowding in the cities has led to a lack of water. If you know, water is expensive in Mexico and hard, and also not the quality is not good, and also sewer problems. Pollution from businesses and overcrowding in the cities has led to smog. And this picture right here is a city, Mexico City, and you can see this is smog and this is pollution, and not a good scenario going on in some of the major cities. Now, because of some of these problems, Mexicans have began to over-farm. In those areas, we said only 1/5 they could farm in, and one of the problems is they're over-farming. And because of over-farming, actually some of the land is turning into desert. So Mexico's desert is actually expanding while the farmland is shrinking. In southern Mexico, where we talked about the rainforests and many trees, slash and burn agriculture, where you basically burn down a rainforest and then use it to grow crops on, is leading to deforestation, because when you use slash and burn techniques, the soil is only good for a few years. Also, harvesting the trees has become a major problem. That'll do it for this one. We'll check back in next week when we talk about the history of Mexico.